teacher that was telling the class communism was just another form of government, better or worse than any other. And a cousin of mine said, well, I heard communism kills people. And the teacher said, where'd you hear that? And he goes, well, my parents are child leaders and jumpers. It's like, oh, they're just a bunch of radicals, he says. So I found out that my uncle and aunt on my dad's side were members. And I went to their house. We listened to an audio cassette tape by Robert Welch. We wrote letters to Congresswoman Virginia Smith, 3rd District of Nebraska, on several issues. And then we had homemade chocolate cream pie. It's pretty rad. So I've been booked on the first side ever since, and it was because I was active going to school at Nebraska Wesleyan, liberal arts campus, heading on the liberal. And then later in graduate school. Anyway, they asked me to work for them. I went, this is grand. So I can go out and be an evangelist for Americanism the rest of my days, hopefully. Anyway, I'm here to present to you Restoring Our Constitutional Republic. Well, it's not all my presentation. I have a coordinator in Florida who originally put it together. I've just tweaked it a little more. But basically, it deals with what the Founding Fathers had to say. Back in the early 19th century, Alexis de Tocqueville came to America. He wrote a book, and he talked about America. He said that America is great because practically every person in the country knew the history of the nation, the doctrines of their faith, and the principles of the Constitution. He says, to a man, he said, practically be a miracle to find somebody in America that did not understand these things. Well, it's about the opposite today, unfortunately. James Garfield said, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be corrupt, ignorant, reckless, it's because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, then it's because the people demand these high qualities. I believe he was our 20th president. We have a unique Constitution. Out of all the world's history, we have a written Constitution that governs the government, not the people. It's a contract between, I think you remember the words, we the people, and the government they form. There's a list of enumerated powers in this Constitution. It's divided up, legislative, executive, and judicial. And incidentally, if you look at the Constitution, 51% or more of the words in that Constitution deal with the legislative branch. The next, maybe third or so, is the presidency and the executive branch, and then the last part is the judicial branch. The smallest part is the judicial branch. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. Among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. Where do our rights come from? God. And why is the government instituted? Fundamental lesson to go home with today is that the government was instituted to protect our God-given rights. That's what it exists for. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Article 1, Section 1, Sentence 1. And this is great. If you're going to be in a conversation with somebody, recite that sentence. That's that one sentence. And then ask the person who you're talking to, how much legislative power does the Congress have? All of it. And what legislative power does it have? Only the power herein granted. Herein granted. Two key words there in that first sentence. The House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. The Congress shall assemble at least once every year. Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 18 specifically define what the Congress can do, what it can be involved in. Hence, back then, when they abided by the Constitution, they didn't have to meet all year long because they knew the boundaries in which they could operate. Things wanted them to meet at least once every year, at least see how things are going. Any problems? All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives. The House holds the first strings of the nation. Now, what is the House? The House are our immediate representatives to the Congress. They're our closest contact with the Congress. The people we write letters to. That's where I started writing letters to Congresswoman Virginia Smith. Well, we need to have a household of constitutionalists that will abide by the Constitution. Then they will decide to spend our money on frivolous projects like, foreign aid, United Nations, bailouts. Congress shall provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Article 1, Section 8. Now that's the introductory clause to the enumeration of powers in Article 1, Section 8, clause 18. And here's what James Madison had to say about it. For what purpose would the enumeration of particular powers be inserted if these and all others were meant to be included in the preceding general power, the general welfare clause? Nothing is more natural or common than first to use a general phrase and then to explain and qualify it by a recital of particulars. So when the media pundits or when those politicians that have read the Constitution in a few years try to tell you that, well, we can vote for anything for the general welfare, you can say, this is the guy that helped write the Constitution. Here's what he had to say about that. And then ask him again. Now, whatever. Come back now. Answer me back. Explain that. They can't do it. The U.S. Constitution to regulate commerce among the several states, to coin money, regulate the value thereof, to establish post offices and post roads, to declare war. Declare war. You know when the last time we declared war? World War II. We have not declared war since World War II. So why are we fighting? If constitutionally we have to have a declaration of war in the Congress, why are we fighting? My colleague who put this list of slides together originally, he was talking to his dad before he became a member of the Democrat Society. He tells about how he came to be a member because he was talking to his dad, and his dad asked him, where do we get the authority to be at war in Iraq? And he says, well, UN Resolution 1441. And his dad said, well, where in the Constitution do we have the authority to enforce UN resolutions? His dad gave him the Constitution and challenged him, find the word democracy in this document one time. He's read it twice. So he thought maybe he had learn more about things from the John Birch Society. Okay. To raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. Why do you suppose that is? Because they didn't want the king, the government, to, in the Bible it says, multiply horses unto himself. To build an army for his personal use. I have just a few copies, if anybody wants a copy of the list of the phrases in the Constitution and where they got it from the Bible. It's pretty neat. To provide and maintain the Navy. This was a unique bit about our Constitution. It says to provide and maintain. There's no limitation on the Navy because the Navy is protecting our borders, our shores. That is a necessity. To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution of the foregoing powers. You hear people say, politicians, we have sentences of the foregoing powers. That lists 1 through 18. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. They can't come back on it. No state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. Honest money. Honest money. We're losing our wealth because we don't have the honest money. The executive power shall be vested in the President. Before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. How far does any of the past few presidents have to go outside of that oath to support, protect, and defend the Constitution before people decide, you know, we got to find somebody who would support and protect the Constitution of the United States? We saw on a slide a couple slides ago that there was that impeachment power. The President shall be Commander-in-Chief when the Army, Navy, and militia are called into the actual service of the United States. So when is he the Commander-in-Chief? Is he the Commander-in-Chief now? No, he's not. Congress has not declared war. He's Commander-in-Chief when and after Congress has declared war. Constitutional war. The President shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Anybody here think of any law that's not being executed? A law that the President's not seen is enforced? Maybe immigration. Name of the popular laws. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices, we're told, for life, aren't we? During good behavior. Did you know that there's a U.S. representative in Florida that is an impeached federal judge? He was impeached as a judge for corruption, and then they hired him. That's like Congressman. Crazy. But we'll get to why that happened in a few minutes. The weakest branch, the judiciary, may truly be said to have neither force nor will, but merely judgment, and must ultimately depend upon the aid of the executive arm, even to the efficacy of its judgments. This simple view of the matter suggests several important consequences. It proves incontestably that the judiciary is beyond comparison the weakest of the three departments of power. Alexander. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution. The laws of the United States and the treaties made over shall be made under their authority. The United States shall guarantee to every citizen in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion. And there's so many points in there that our current government is not really taking good care of. Against invasion. How many thousands, tens of thousands of people are coming across our borders each year? That's not an invasion. I'm not talking about the ones that come across illegally. We're told that judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution. How many of you have heard Supreme Court justices wanting to cite international law as precedent for their judgment on a local case, the U.S. case? And it should be happening. This Constitution, the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. So, the U.S. makes a treaty with the United Nations, lost the law of the sea treaty, which suddenly regulates all water, not just the oceans, but the rivers that are draining into the oceans. The rain that falls into the land that rolls into the rivers that go into the ocean.
Can you hold
Can they do that? No. All they can do is write a treaty, they can agree to a treaty that falls under the Constitution. Our Constitution is the supreme law of the land. The senators and representatives before mentioned and the States and of the several states shall be found by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. I heard it said, well, my congressman, he votes constitutionally 80% of the time. Now let me ask you, he took an oath to support and defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. I'm sure some of you are married. He took an oath. Now, if your spouse came to you and said, or not your spouse, if your friend came to you and told you, well, your spouse has been faithful to you 80% of the time, how happy would you be? It's that kind of livid anger that you'd be feeling that we should be feeling towards these congressmen, these senators. It's like, no. The convictions of a number of the states having at the time of their adopting the Constitution express a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuses of its powers that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added. 10 amendments. First 10 amendments. They call it the Bill of Rights. It actually should be called the Bill of Prohibitions because it's further saying Congress shall not. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment or religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or preventing the people peaceably to assemble, or to petition the government for redress of grievances. First Amendment. Where did they come up with the idea that you can't say a prayer at a football game in high school? Did Congress make a law? Then, if the principal should give a prayer at a football game in high school, no law's been broken, has it? And if there's been no law broken, what does the Supreme Court have to do? Or any court for that matter? Sometimes I think these things through. Well, yeah, I guess we could do that. So feel free to tell the principal that you can go ahead and do it before we're walking. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Anybody been to an airport recently? No.
I'm boycotting.
The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people, and the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited by it to the states or reserved to the states respectively or to the people. It's a nice way of saying that, and if we've forgotten any, you guys can't get that either. Powers, rights, responsibilities belong to the states and to the people. The powers delegated to the by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. We need to ingrain that in our minds, and ingrain that in our neighbors' minds, that they aren't the see-all, be-all, do-all. We are not to look to them for all of our sustenance. Let us be free. The power reserved to the several states shall extend to all the objects which in the ordinary course of affairs govern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people, and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. James Madison. There's no authorization in the U.S. Constitution for foreign aid, national bank, Federal Reserve, housing, medicine, education, transportation, energy, agriculture. You've heard it said that we send so many, for every dollar we send back to Washington, we get 10 cents of it back. Why not? Keep it here. Make it do more good. Experience has shown that even under the best forms of government, those invested in the power shall in time and by slow operations perverted it into tyranny. And it is believed that the most effectual means of preventing this would be to illuminate, as far as practical, the minds of the people. We just need to develop a sufficiently informed electorate. It goes back to what de Tocqueville said at the beginning. People here in America understood the history, understood the principles of the Constitution, the doctrines of their faith, practically throughout the land. We have to get back to that. That's the way we can stop these. I know of no safe depository of the open powers of the society with the people themselves. And if we think them done enlightened enough to exercise their The remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective for the abuses of constitutional power. Thomas Jefferson. Although all men have been, this is James Madison again, although all men are born free and all nations might be so, yet too true it is that slavery has been the normal lot of the human race. Ignorant they have been cheated, asleep they have been surprised, divided, the yoke has been forced upon them. But what is the lesson? And because the people may betray themselves, they ought to give themselves up blindfolded to those who have an interest in betraying them? Rather, conclude that the people ought to be enlightened, to be awakened, to be united, and that after establishing a government, they should watch over it as well as obey it. We all know too many people that figure, I can do it. I'm just a little person. I voted for that guy, it's up to it's his job to do the right thing. If he doesn't do the right thing, it's not my responsibility. It's not true. Only one way back to the Constitution, that is through building an informed electorate that will monitor the constitutionality of congressional votes. We have a freedom index over everything. Influence representatives and legislators to vote constitutional on new legislation. We will show you not only how to write the first letter, but when you get that computer-generated form letter from the Congressman, we'll show you how to write that second letter. And when you get that second computer-generated form letter back from the Congressman, we'll show you how to take all those letters and go to the next town hall meeting and get up and say, Congressman, excuse me, Congressman, I sent you this on this date, and you sent me this on this date. On this date, I sent you this again. On this date, you sent me this again. Now tell me, Congressman, at $146,000 a year, do you consider this effective representation of your constituency? Yes, his face may true. And he may quote it. But I've got all these other conservative groups that give me a 100% rating. Congressman. We can be polite, but we can be firm. But the idea is to let him know that we know out here in the district what he's doing and how he should abide by as well as to support and defend the Constitution. Elect a constitutionalist to Congress. That'd be an all idea. Samuel Adams said, if ever a time should come when vain and aspiring men should possess the highest seats in government, our country will stand in need of this experienced patriots to preserve his ruin. Robert Welch founded the John Birch Society in 1958 with the idea of developing a sufficiently informed electorate. The cure-all, as you've heard mentioned in the Founding Fathers' quotes, that we can develop a sufficiently informed electorate who will elect statesmen to offices of these politicians, people who will abide by the Constitution. A constitutional Congress will enact laws within the framework of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, reading. They will repeal unconstitutional laws. We can start repealing socialism here in America, starting with the latest law passed and just working back until they are off the books. Stop funding unconstitutional programs. Limit the appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. The Congress created the federal, the lower federal court. It can abolish it. So, cancel executive orders that exceed the jurisdiction of the president, and they should do it gladly. Some of these crazy, like Lionel mentioned earlier, that Agenda 21 White House Rural Community Executive Order. I haven't seen the Constitution where he had that authority, and they should just shove it right back into his desk and say, are you nuts? Did you read what you swore to support, defend, and preserve the Constitution? A wealth of resources. We have to offer a full-time field staff, coordinating activities across the U.S., local chapters, constitutionally-based news analysis magazine, The New American, Congressional Scorecard, published twice a year. Michael's got those back on the table. Freedom Index. I should have had a sample there, sorry. And legislative action alerts. Every month, you get a monthly bulletin. This is your action agenda. People across the nation are working on these action programs in concert have all the members of the team using the same playbook, you're more effective. You score more touchdowns. And that was the idea behind putting together a national grassroots education organization. Total constitutional approach. We have a research facility at headquarters. We've got a book publishing division, video and audio production department, National Speakers Bureau, youth programs. We have got a website that now offers middle through high school education. I mean, online courses from all the subjects for classical and liberal arts education, like my father's received. It's called freedomproject.com. FBBUSA1.org is the actual website for the online classes. By fall, we're going to have K through 12. And the idea is to bring up a generation of people that understand civics, that understand the Constitution, that understand history, that understand what the founding fathers drew upon to give us what we have today, or what they gave us back in 1770, they not what we have today. Anyway, it's a great program for you. And there's more, of course. We've got a shop online, shopabs.org, Liberty News Network. We've got videos that are shown. There's hundreds of videos you can watch from our website, but there's also a weekly 5 to 10 minute commentary by our CEO, Mark Thompson, where he gives you the news behind the news. You might read something in the newspaper, but you understand who the players are, where they're coming from, the real issues involved. It may go over your head. And this 8 to 10 minutes there on Monday morning is worth your checking out, because you begin to develop that understanding. Freedom Project, there's a Campus Liberty Alliance. This is where we're trying to get chapters built on college campuses. This is just a chart to show, there's radio and TV personnel going across the top, foundations, colleges, lobbyists, religious spokespersons, conservative spokespersons, conservative politicians, non-JBS groups with chapters, political parties, judicial activities, and the John Birch Society. And the left-hand column going down is all that is offered. Just to kind of give you a chart idea of what else is available through the John Birch Society. Now, how do we re-educate the public? We have a director, my boss, Jim Fitzgerald. He oversees the field staff, primarily through the regional field directors like myself. I cover the southeast quadrant of the U.S. Hal Sherwood from the northeast is Lionel's supervisor. Then we have coordinators. Coordinators work out in the field with the local chapters and members. And we just took those labels off and then put coordinator at the top, and then put chapter leaders or chapters there in the red blocks, and then put chapters in the gold blocks, and then you see that we're organized down to the street level. And the idea behind that is that when you're working together, you've got each other's back, you're able to work together to help get projects carried out, like bringing a speaker to town. We teach the section leaders and chapter leaders how to do things efficiently, effectively, and to maintain the membership by giving everybody a job and then following up to see that they complete that job. And I can tell you, when Gorby came to Fulton, Missouri in May of '92, I wasn't too long on the field staff at that time, but I contacted members, and we had members from across the state coming to Fulton, Missouri, where we were going to expose the New World Order policies promoted by Gorby and former President George H.W. Bush, or Bush the Elder, I like to call him, because they were working together to build socialism here in the world. And we got out flyers. We passed out 16,000 flyers to the 30-some people that attended. Many of them already had the full page ad be taken out in the full newspaper, or many of them heard the radio programs. Anyway, after all that, those members that met with me in Fulton passed out all that material. We met for ice cream at the local party restaurant and talked about the people we met and the response we received from most people that were there. It was pretty exciting. But that's, fun. We can have fun working to save the country. There's a whole chapter. And notice he leaves a lot of young people. We're getting a lot of young people joining the John Lewis Society, which is very inspiring. Okay, I asked that question earlier. How do we educate? How do we develop a sufficiently informed electorate? The 110-6 program. You've heard the saying, you eat an elephant a bite at a time. Well, we work out a plan. 110-6. 100, select 100 voting households in your neighborhood. Or if someone has your town, you can go to the next one. But anyway, select 100 voting households and regularly educate them twice a year with the Freedom Index. And then the other 2 quarters, it might be a reprint on Agenda 21, it might be a reprint on Obamacare. But anyway, reach those households, voting households. Now, ordinarily, there'll be more than one person in a household. You could reach as many as 400 voters in that household. If there's 10 of you doing this, that could be 4,000 voters. Imagine 500 activists, that's 50,000 households, that's 200,000 voters. Here's the figures from the 2000 census. Pencils ready? On the average, 650,000 people per congressional district, 470,000 eligible to vote. These are national averages. 325,000 registered to vote. Of those, 240,000 actually turn out and vote in a presidential election style, because that year they have all the pomp and circumstance, and many go to the polls and vote for their president. They have no idea what their name of their representative even is. Okay, so on the off years, well, on those years, when 240,000 actually voted, 120,000 won electoral students. 200,000 voters who turned the tide in that election cycle. On the off years, because the House is up every 2 years, it drops down to 170,000 voting, 85,000 voting turning Koreans. You don't have to educate everybody, so keep that burden off your back. Don't ever let that stop you from this day forward. You can say, I don't have to educate everybody. I just have to educate one share. And pretty soon we're going to have a constitutional supporting us, representing us in Congress. Tenant opinion holders. These are your doctors, your dentists, your lawyers, your newspaper men, that guy that's always at the coffee shop every morning, that everybody comes to talk to. He's an influence, an influential person, so feed in information. 6 prospects for membership. We are an educational army. The late Congressman Larry McDonald said that we are in an educational war. We are after as many hearts and minds as we can find. And how do we find them? Through books, videos, magazine. There is your ammo dump right over there on the table. And of course, if you're going to get the ammo out there, you got to have soldiers. Members of the John Birch Society going out there distributing this information effectively. Let's have a little brief comparison here. Remember this picture? How many millions did they estimate was in Washington, D.C. that day? I heard 1 to 3.5 million people. Let's just say there was 1 million. How much would it cost one person to go to that weekend? $500 would be a fair price. Times 1 million people. That's $500 million spent to go to Washington, wave aside, and come home. What was accomplished? Now imagine. We divide that 500 million up by 435 congressional districts. $1 million. How many people? How easy would it be to develop a sufficiently informed electorate if you had $1 million? It'd be pretty easy. Those reprints are not expensive. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. Do you want to know who you are? Don't ask. Act. Action will delineate and define you. Thomas Jefferson. In support of this declaration and the firm reliance on the protection of divine providence we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Daniel Webster. This is a great quote. You should write this down. Listen quick. Hold on, my friends, to the Constitution and the Republic for which it stands. Miracles do not cluster. And what has happened once in 6,000 years may not happen again. So we really got to work to hold on to this Constitution now. Because I further predicted that without this Constitution, without America, the world, not just America, but the world is going to be pretty dark. So, we'd like to ask you to pledge your time, treasure, talents in the freedom fight. The dues for the magazine, the dues for individuals is $7.25 a month. You get the magazine, you get the bulletin. Magazine twice a month, bulletin once a month. And you'll get pestered by your quarterly. For married couples, it's $8.25 a month. Now, I don't know. One day I turned on the television set and I saw a very popular pizza company, an ad. And who was promoting the purchase of those pizzas? Camp White. That was the last time I bought that company's pizza. It was $9 a kilo, which I did to the children in Afghanistan. So, I'm just saying, perhaps you should give up pizza from that company or whatever other restaurant that isn't politically correct as far as constitutionals are concerned, and direct that money to where we can put it to work saving the country. We just need a few more good people to get this information out in an effective manner and begin turning things around. So, let's see, do I have anything else here? That's it. Any questions?